The New York Islanders did the one thing you can't do last night in their loss to Seattle. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more, including Adam Pelech's return to practice, coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. A very disappointing, in fact, demoralizing loss for the New York Islanders. They fall to the Seattle Kraken by a final score of 5-2. And here's the disappointing thing, more than anything else. I can handle a team not having a good game. That's going to happen. I can handle a team being outplayed. Again, it's an 82-game season. You're going to have some games where you have, play well, some games where you're shaky. What cannot happen, and what did happen last night at UBS Arena, in front of what looked like a half-empty building at times, is you have to be ready to play. And the Islanders were not ready to play. This team, for the first two periods at least, was absolutely flat and didn't get hardly any pressure on Joey Daccord of the Kraken. Did not generate much offense, took some dumb penalties, and it ended up costing them. And, I don't know what else to say except same old for the New York Islanders. Yeah, in the third period, they kind of rallied a little bit from, the time that Noah Dobson scored his first goal on a goalie this year, second goal of the season. And then Maxim Siplikov getting a goal with 4:23 left to make it a little interesting. But let's get real. You can't not show up, okay? You can't not show up. When the puck drops, you've got to be ready. And they weren't ready. Just flat out were not ready. Same old problems with the penalty kill. You give up 2 power play goals. Not going to get it done. 2 power play goals on 2 power plays. That's, again, not a formula for winning hockey games. And the penalty kill was just flat out dreadful. I can't say I blame Ilya Sorokin, even though he gave up 4 goals on just 13 shots. And I like the fact that Patrick Waugh put Marcus Hogberg in for the third period, and he did his job. He stopped all 11 shots. But for the life of me, this team is so frustrating because they showed a little heart in the third period by not quitting and kind of making this game a little closer. But for the first 2 periods, they were missing in action. And it seems like everything the Islanders tried to do to get something out of this team didn't work. And I can't say I blame Patrick Waugh for trying. He actually reinserted Pierre Engvall into the lineup, sat Matt Martin, put Engvall to start the game on the second line with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, moved Siplikov down to the third line with Pajot and Oliver Wahlstrom. This is a big chance for Pierre Engvall to get into his coach's good graces. Well, he only ends up playing 12 minutes and 1 second. He was a -1. He had no shots on goal, no hits, 1 blocked shot. After the game, Patrick Waugh asked about whether or not Engvall did what was asked of him. And Waugh's response, do I have to answer that? I didn't see the spark that I was hoping to see. I'll leave it at that. That was a tough question. And obviously that was kind of sarcasm. And let's face it, Engvall started on the top line, second line rather, ended up on the fourth line because he just didn't show anything. You cannot forgive not being ready to play. You can be sloppy. You can be inconsistent. You got to be ready to play. And for the first time in the first 40 minutes of this game, it looked like this team didn't care. And that is something that fans should never tolerate. And they didn't. I mean, the fans were booing the Islanders throughout the first 2 periods into the first part of the third. Yeah, they let up a little once the Islanders actually got that, the 2 goals to make it a little interesting. But this is just unacceptable. And I know the injuries are an issue. But you know what? Effort doesn't depend on injuries. Effort is something that you give because you're a professional. Effort is something you give because you care about your coach and your teammates and your career and both the name on the back of the sweater and the crest on the front of the sweater. And the Islanders just didn't show that they cared enough in the first 2 periods of this game. And keep in mind, no offense to the Seattle Kraken. They played well last night. They deserved to win the hockey game. No offense to the Seattle Kraken. But the Kraken and the Islanders, and for those of you who watched our crossover episode on Thursday, are aware that these 2 teams are mirror images of each other. Both a little disappointing. Both a little bit below NHL 500. Both having issues on special teams. The Kraken had trouble starting games slowly. The Islanders can't finish. Well, you know what? You didn't go out there and lose to a powerhouse. This wasn't the Florida Panthers or the Edmonton Oilers or, the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the Seattle Kraken, a team that is roughly in the same ballpark as you. You're at home, and you just lay an egg, and it's not acceptable. Something has to change. And you could talk to me about injuries, but clearly there is more of a problem here. When Pierre Engvall gets a chance to show what he could do, an undeserved opportunity on the second line, breaking up the only line that was fairly consistent over the course of the season, to give Pierre Engvall a chance, and he does nothing with it. When this team just can't seem to get out of its own way, can't seem to put in the effort, there's a bigger problem here than the injuries. And you can look at the standings and the Islanders are in 8th place and you could say, but they're only 2 points out of 4th place in the division behind the New York Rangers. And you're right. They're 2 points behind the Rangers. The Rangers also have 3 games in hand. And let's face it, even when this team is healthy, they are a fringe playoff team. You've heard me say it all offseason into the regular season. When healthy, this team finishes somewhere between 7th and 10th in the conference and either just makes or just misses the playoffs. Well, guess what? With these injuries, they're not even good enough to do that. And let's face it, you've got 3 years in a row where you didn't make the playoffs, were eliminated in the first round, and were eliminated in the first round. And in neither one of those two series that you were eliminated in the first round were you ever really a threat to win the series. Clearly, bringing back this same roster is foolish. And if management, if ownership doesn't realize that this team maxed out its capabilities 4 years ago when they went to the conference final for the second year in a row, and they're not willing to make some changes, if Lou Lamoriello will not make changes, then ownership has to make changes, and Lou Lamoriello has to be shown the door. Because you cannot continue along this route. The longer you wait to make changes, to start trading away some of the older guys on bad contracts, to create cap space, to create room for younger, faster, more skilled players. And it may take 2, 3, 4 years to get to a contending spot. But I can tell you right now, if you don't do that, it'll take 5 or 6 years. And it'll be more difficult because you need to start accumulating picks and prospects. Or even if you just want to retool, get some younger, faster, skilled guys in here and get some of these veterans out. I love these players as people. I love what they've done for this organization over the last 3, 4, 5, 10 years. But being a hockey GM is knowing when to cut bait. It's knowing when you need to make a change. And the time to make changes was probably 2 years ago or a year ago. But boy, oh boy, is this team waiting too long. And the way this team is built, the best they can hope for is everybody gets healthy. They play really well down the stretch. And again, sneak in as a wild card to the playoffs and probably get bounced in the first round again. And I can tell you right now, each year that goes by, the chances of that happening grow less and less. You've got a chance this trade deadline and this offseason to really dig in and make some changes. Will ownership step up and realize changes need to be made? To me, ownership has to say to Lou Lamoriello, you bring in some new blood right now. You make some changes to this roster by the trade deadline, or you're gone. And it can't just be trading Pierre Engvall for a 6th round pick. It's got to be a major change to the core of this team because this core maxed out 3, 4 years ago. And if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for different results, Lou Lamoriello is too smart for that. And I don't understand why he hasn't made changes. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We have some good news for Brock Nelson, some good news for Adam Pelech. We've got 2 games this weekend to preview. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a defenseman who is better known as a Canadian, a Flyer, a Whaler, and a Mighty Duck, who played parts of 2 seasons for the Islanders in the very early 2000s. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Islander fans, 2 games coming up this weekend against Carolina and Ottawa. Check out all the latest odds on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So a little good news that was announced, and a little bit of a surprise, but a good surprise. Brock Nelson, an addition to Team USA for the Four Nations face-off. And, there were some other players I think they could have gone with, but it makes sense that Nelson made it. Cole Caulfield, Clayton Keller, Alex DeBrincat did not make it. But you got to think about this. Nelson can play wing. Nelson can play center. Nelson has a lot of experience in international play. He can kill penalties. He can be on the power play. He's responsible defensively, and he's a leader. So to me, it really does make a lot of sense. And here's what Brock Nelson had to say. Yeah, it means a lot. I really didn't know how things would shake out, but it's super exciting. Anytime you can represent your country in any tournament, it means a lot. So in something like this, that's a little bit different. First time in this form of a tournament, it'll be exciting. I think the setup looks pretty awesome with the cities that it'll be in. So the roster looks awesome. I'm just soaking it in right now, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Now, keep in mind, Nelson, his grandfather was Bill Christian, who won a gold medal with the U.S. Olympic hockey team in 1960. So you've got that. The family, lines for international play is very impressive. And congratulations, basically, to Brock Nelson for being named to Team USA's roster. Now, no other Islander making any of the four teams. Matthew Barzal and Noah Dobson were considered possibilities before this season started. But, I can't blame anybody for not putting either one of those players on the roster. Why? Barzal is hurt, still not ready to play. And Dobson, let's face it, is just not playing well this season. He's been disappointing offensively and dreadful defensively. So, I could not imagine that Noah Dobson would, as of right now, be a choice for Team Canada. Another little bit of good news, by the way, for the New York Islanders. Defenseman Adam Pelech did return to practice on Thursday. Now, he was in a team skate. He was wearing a non-contact jersey and a full face shield. He has already missed 16 games since the injury, and it's a jaw injury. He was originally expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, and he can be activated whenever he's ready. The fact that it's still a non-contact jersey at practice tells me he's probably not going to be ready this weekend, but at least we are getting a little progress with Adam Pelech, getting closer to his return. And look, let's face facts. He'll need some time to get back into hockey shape. I doubt he comes back and steps in and plays the way he did before the injury. But again, with everything that's going on, getting Adam Pelech a step closer, making a little progress toward his return is a very welcome thing. And hopefully it will get him back before too long, because the New York Islanders need Adam Pelech to be ready and to play. So, Pelech has only played 11 games this year. It's time for him to get back out there and hopefully help this Islander team improve and start climbing up the standings, because the Islanders, again, in 8th place in the Metro, playing poorly, maybe getting Adam Pelech back in the lineup and eventually Anthony Duclair and Matthew Barzal. Maybe that gives this team a little more juice and a little more momentum heading, forward, because right now they desperately need it. All right, we have got a lot more to get to on today's show. 2 games coming up this weekend, both at 5 o'clock Eastern time, so the weekend schedule a little different. Islanders will host the Carolina Hurricanes and visit Ottawa to take on the Senators. We'll preview both of those games, plus we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So 2 games this weekend, and hopefully the Islanders can do a little something. They need desperately, if they want to do anything, they need to win at least one of these 2 games, preferably both. But they got to start accumulating points now. Home game Saturday, 5 o'clock Eastern time against the Carolina Hurricanes. Never an easy matchup. This is a team that, the Islanders have struggled with, and this is the first of 4 meetings between the Islanders and the Hurricanes this year. Carolina, let's face it, they are in a different league right now than the Islanders. They are 10 points ahead of the Islanders with a game in hand. They are 1 point out of first place. Just ended a 3-game losing streak by beating the 3-game losing streak by beating the Colorado Avalanche 5-3. But they are 6th in goals for, 10th in goals against. The special teams, 4th on the power play, 7th on the penalty kill. They are essentially everything the Islanders are not right now. Peter Kochetkov doing really well in goal, but the backups, Spencer Martin, Frederik Andersen, Spencer Martin rather in particular, struggling right now. And Dustin Tokarski is right now the backup due to some injuries. The line combination, Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, and Jack Roslovich are the top line. Jack Drury, Eric Robinson, Martin Necas are the second line. Jordan Stahl, Jordan Martinook, and Seth Jarvis, the third line. And from left to right on the fourth line, William Carrier, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Jackson Blake. On defense, Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns are a talented top pair. Dmitry Orlov and Jalen Chatfield are the middle pair. And Shane Gostisbehere and Sean Walker are the third pair. Again, Kochetkov and Tokarski are the goalies. Jesper Fast on IR. Frederik Andersen, the backup goalie, is out. And never easy to beat a well-coached Carolina team who will be ready for the New York Islanders. Then Saturday, the Islanders have a 5 o'clock road game in Ottawa against the Senators. Now, the Senators will also be coming off a back-to-back. Both games for Ottawa are at home, but they play at 7 o'clock Eastern time, so the Islanders starting 2 hours earlier. Does it even things out? Not quite, but it's a little better, I guess. Ottawa, like the Islanders, hanging around NHL 500. They are 11-12-2, so 24 points in 25 games. And they won their last game against the Red Wings 2-1 last night. Ottawa, 18th in goals scored, 19th in goals against. Their power play is third, their penalty kill 24th. Obviously, in both of these games, the Islanders need to stay out of the box. And here are the line combinations for Ottawa. Josh Norris, Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, that's the top line. Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux, and Ridley Gregg are the second line. Shane Pinto, the Long Island native. Nick Cousins and Michael Amadio are the third line. And then Zach Ostapchuk centers Noah Gregor and Adam Gaudette on the fourth line. Jake Sanderson and Travis Hamonic, the ex-Islander, are the top defense pair. Thomas Chabot and Nick Jensen are the middle pair. And then Tyler Cleven, Jacob Bernard Docker make up the third pair. The goalies, Linus Ullmark and Anton Forsberg, and Artem Zub is on IR. David Perron day-to-day, so we'll see if he's able to come back. And obviously, whichever goalie starts on on Saturday, the Islanders will see the other goalie on Sunday. And obviously, a big question for the Islanders is whether or not they will get back Semyon Varlamov, because otherwise Hogberg is going to have to start one of those two games over the weekend. He played well. Look, he looked solid in the preseason. He looked solid in the third period against Seattle, but obviously, if possible, you would like to have Varley back if he's ready to go. Whether he will be remains a question. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And Thursday was the 54th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Kevin Haller, the Trucho, Alberta native, drafted in the first round, 14th overall by the Sabres back in 1989, made his NHL debut in the 89-90 season, playing 2 games, and became a full-time NHLer by 91-92, played for Buffalo, won a cup with Montreal in 92-93, then played for the Flyers, the Whalers, the Hurricanes, the Ducks, and joined the Islanders in the 2000-2001 season, had a goal and 6 points in 30 games for the Isles, played 1 game in 2001-2002 before his career ended. 642 career NHL games, 41 goals, 138 points, 907 penalty minutes, add 7 goals, 23 points in 64 playoff games, none of those with the Isles. Haller, more of a defensive defenseman at 6'2", $195. His best game as an Islander, how about November 27th, 2000, Islanders hosting the Lightning at the Old Barn, the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Dan Cloutier, the goalie for Tampa, Wade Flaherty in goal for the Islanders. And basically, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Kevin Haller, scores late in the first period to give the Islanders a 3-0 lead. Claude Lapointe and Tim Connolly get the assist. And then with 7 seconds left in the period, Haller sets up Dave Scatchard for a goal. That, at that point, made it 4-1 Islanders. Islanders go on to win it by a score of 7-4. Kevin Haller, a goal, an assist. He was a +2 in this game. And he had 2 shots on goal while playing almost 19 minutes. Good game for the Islanders with the 7-4 win. And Kevin Haller, a tough, physical defenseman, is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from hosts Steele and Flip. You can find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name, where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. Plus, I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. Thanks for being patient tonight. I was a little under the weather last night and today, but I'm happy to be able to at least get this episode finished and talk a little Islanders hockey with you. And we will be back Monday with our key takeaways from both games and any updates on the walking wounded for the New York Islanders, who hopefully will get even closer to returning to the lineup. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.